What is up, everybody? This is your girl, Martha D. Staub, owner of MDMC Entertainment, and welcome to another episode of Business Building and Beyond. I am so fortunate to be sitting down with an amazing actor. Please welcome Arthur Ranford. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
So how is New Zealand? I love talking to everyone in New Zealand because
we're bathed in sunshine at the moment. It's early autumn and lovely sunny, slight breeze today for the America's Cup yachting on our harbour. Team Prada from Italy against Team New Zealand, or Emirates Team New Zealand, sponsored by the Emirates airline.
That's so cool. I've yet to make it down to New Zealand. Hopefully when this is over, I'm definitely going. I've made a lot of friends there. I've interviewed a lot of people from New Zealand, and I just every time I talk to somebody, it just sounds more and more intriguing. I can't wait to take a trip down there.
We're out of lockdown. We were locked down for a week because of some community outbreak of COVID, but we've got on top of that again. So once again, we're roaming around very normally, very free, not wearing masks, not having to socially distance particularly. We have to be careful with hand washing and mask wear on public transport and things like that. But otherwise, the rest of the world's a bit amazed when they see pictures of the huge crowds gathering for the yachting at the moment. There'll be at least 50,000 people out today down by the harbour watching. Wow,
that must be like, I can't even imagine what that feels like right now, just to be in a crowd of people. I can't seem to see the end of the tunnel here. The U.S.
We get the news. We hear how Brazil, the news from Brazil today is terrible. 75,000 more people, lots of deaths.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, as far as we're seeing, I think we're being told that our vaccine, everyone should be vaccinated by May 1st. So.
Oh, that's quick. And we're going to have to wait longer than that. You've got a fast rollout. My word, when you get going, you get going.
Well, we have better leadership this time around. So
yes.
Around this time last year, I couldn't imagine we're being told, oh, it'll be done by Easter, and.
But I have to tell you, I keep running across quite a few Trump supporters here. It's really disconcerting.
Really? Oh my goodness! The Kool-Aid made it down to New Zealand. That's shocking.
Sorry,
man. What was that? I said the Kool-Aid made it all the way down to New Zealand. That's shocking.
Oh hell yeah! We have our authoritarian, rebel-rousing, demagogic people who are drawn to that sort of stuff. Not our politics is usually to the left. Our national party would be to the left of your Democratic Party. Quite frankly, we were. But we did buy in heavily to neoliberal economics, so we're paying a social price for that with the extremes of wealth and poverty in our little country, and we've got some third world diseases which we shouldn't have. Things like cholera outbreaks and a heck of a lot of. Can't think of the. Diabetes pandemic in South Auckland. Gosh. Yeah. People drinking too much Coca-Cola, quite frankly, and the like, carbonated sugared drinks, which is cheaper than buying milk. Cheaper than milk and cheaper than buying bottled water. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, I drink water all the time. It's water and tea for me. That's it. Sometimes coffee.
This is the darker side of little New Zealand, but basically we are healthy and happy and outdoors and exercised, but there is this and there is child poverty, kids growing up with not quite enough food and it's ridiculous. We're small, so we pitch around and try and fix it up a bit, but the government the government is instituting longer range policies that's slowly being it right. Terrible housing problem here. Shortage of housing. We haven't got enough houses. But otherwise, and of course, the performing arts have been hit hard here as everywhere with the COVID shutting down theatres and shutting down. It hasn't shut down film production, though. We're getting a lot of production from the States. I've worked on Netflix's Jazz Band, which is a remake of the Japanese Cowboy Bebop.
How
I've had a couple of days on Jazz Band. That's down in East Auckland, Tamaki. Netflix have bought 2 huge warehouses and crammed them full of insulation and created big film studios. And there's other ones out West Auckland here, which the Amazon is here filming. We're not supposed to name it. It's the Fantasy Project out west, which is really a Tolkien television series.
Oh, yeah.
Of a prequel.
Yeah, it's quite exciting to see how much, because I live in San Diego, which is not far from LA, and I was just
seaside city. That's a great sailing city, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then, I was cruising around the studios yesterday. I was up in LA doing stuff, and it's just crazy how much is sent off to New Zealand, and New Zealand is like their own little hub of creation, and especially during this time of COVID. You guys are probably the number one country everyone should be emulating right now, and you guys are doing things safe, and so of course production, the show must go on in true
we're benefiting. I'm trying to think of the actor who came over. He brought Deborah Winger with him. It's an interesting name. No, I'm not going to remember. It's a sort of a triple banger name. Interesting actor. He's here making a sort of a suburban television drama down in Wellington, but Wellington's a company town. That's Peter Jackson's town, and of course, along with Peter Jackson has arisen Weta Workshop, which is one of the world's great animation studios. Quite a few Americans working there, actually.
That's awesome. So how did you get into acting? Was this something that
I started in my first days in primary school. For some reason I put on a wolf mask and I was electrified. I was possessed by the spirit of a wolf or something. It was so exciting. And then during my primary school days, I put on little shows and acted them. And we used to have an annual school concert down in the local hall. And I started doing regular little productions and acting in them. And we also used to march around. We used to get into costumes. Parents would spend hours on sewing machines. So dress up, sewing up costumes. I was a very weedy Superman once. But I got into the habit of doing this, and then that continued. The first 2 years of secondary school, though, I got into music, and I was very shy about acting, didn't do any. But the last 3 years, I did more and more in musicals and things, Gilbert and Sullivan shows. And I started working with the local amateur rep society. There was no professional theatre in Palmerston North at that time. But later on, a madman arrived and started a theatre company, which is still there, a professional dinner theatre company, dine and what do we call them? Restaurant theatre, And it still is, and it's still there. And for a while, we had 8 subsidised theatre companies throughout New Zealand, which for a little country, we were about 3.5 million people then. It was really good going. Wellington had, I think, 11% of the population went to see live theatre, which is very unusual internationally. I think 2 to 4% is the norm, the average number of people that go to live theatre productions. Of course, you've got some great theatre cities in America. You've got Chicago and New York. And we don't realize here that a lot of American film stars do a lot of live theatre when they haven't got work and productions shut down, or they just do productions. They won't be so much recently because people can't do it.
Yeah, no, it's been really sad because we do know people that do theater in New York City, and they've been on blackouts for a year now. And
same in London. I think theaters were going to go bankrupt, but of course Andrew Lloyd Webber owns a lot of the 19th century theaters now, and he's kept them going. He's put his fortune up to keep them open, and they're not open, but they're still there, and they will be available when it all starts up again. They've had momentary startups. I think what's the big French Les Miserables? Les Miserables was back on stage briefly and then they had to shut down again. It's devastating. I spent a lot of time doing live theatre back in the mid-70s and 80s. Toured the world in the 80s with a fringe theatre production, going to the wonderful Canadian fringe theatre festivals in Edmonton, Alberta, and Vancouver. And it's now, that model is now right across Canada and down into the western states seaboard states of of the USA. So there are companies in Britain that just exist to go over and summer to North America and go to all the traveling right across. We have a fringe theatre. We've got quite a circuit now, including Adelaide, Sydney, Wellington, Auckland. It's a way people can get some experience. It's hard now for young actors to get the kind of stage experience that we were doing monthly rep, rehearsing a show while performing a show in the evening. And we did it 6 nights a week, and we went for 3 to 4 weeks, and then we went black for a week while we transferred shows over. And I did a lot of schools touring schools with productions for kids, primary kids mainly, but some secondary school. But more recently, I spent 10 years, I had to sort of leave the profession really and teach English in a language school, which a lot of actors do. The work dried up in midlife, or I had a huge midlife crisis in my 50s. But I knew that as I got older and more interesting as a character, and it's happening, it's coming away again for me. Now it's screen acting. I'm doing more screen acting. But we will be doing a little children's production of Hansel and Gretel. I'll play my violin and act in it. I'm playing the father. And it'll be a minimalist production with ladders and coloured cloth and stuff, and good costumes. And we'll be able to tour that everywhere with our ladders, just take it where there's a space. We're starting in a community centre, which is an old primary school, these beautiful old wooden primary schools in New Zealand with a very high stud. That means a very high ceiling. And lots of windows with light coming in. And we won't have any particular lighting, but be natural lighting, and people will come in and sit on the carpet, including adults, and we'll do Hansel and Gretel. That's in July. So it got shut down. It was going to be last year, but that was a casualty of COVID. Yeah.
So you know how to play several musical instruments as well?
Yes, mainly piano and violin, but with Dramadillo's Odyssey, that's the fringe one that went all around the world. I had a battery. I've still got the instruments. I spent about 1,500 New Zealand dollars on a lot of percussion, bamboo flutes, a kithara, which is a Greek lyre or harp, and various instruments that made farting noises, and for all the monsters, and all sorts of stuff I've still got, and that'll be used in Hansel and Gretel. Rustling discs and bells and chimes, and I played my violin, and there's a beautiful Chinese gong, and I had some cymbals and a snare drum, and lots of fun.
How cool. So you are theatrically trained. How is that going from, you've been on the big screen as well?
I didn't train everybody now needs to train in an acting school, and that's a bit of a trap in some ways. You can get into bad habits in acting schools. I trained on the job when we started Centrepoint Theatre. That's where I got started professionally. But I already had considerable experience as an amateur. And as I say, it was very natural to me because I've been doing it since all through primary school. It was something I did. When I had the sort of midlife crisis, there was a period there where I felt, why on earth would you do that? Why do people get up and do that? I felt what a lot of people feel, this sort of fear, and people displaying their feelings. And so we've got one great director here said, acting is a striptease of the soul. Many people are prepared to bare their soul. You have to be very truthful, and you have to dig very deep into yourself sometimes. It's all make-believe and play, but it can be very profound. I once was performing down in our lovely town of Nelson, and a little boy said, the show was based on a historical, an old puppeteer who came out to New Zealand very early on, about 1845, and toured for the rest of that century, 19th century, all around Otago and central Otago and Southland. Beautiful country. The New Zealand Puppet Theatre, when it existed, I was playing him, and we went down there and performed where he performed through schools down there. And I dressed myself up, and we played in Nelson as well at the top of the South Island. And I used to dress up. I get the kids to tell me what to put on. And then I would turn around and put on, what was the last thing I put on? A beard, a false beard in those days. And then I would turn around and suddenly I was the character. And they would go, whoa, wow. Yeah. But at the end of the show, a little boy said, is this real? And I thought, great. Okay.
That's how you know you did really well as an actor. If they have
kids that you know, I think working for kids is a great privilege, very wonderful. They're very immediate. They're very quick to suspension of disbelief, you know, and enter the imaginative journey. And that's what I like about our Hansel and Gretel production. It leaves a lot of room for their imaginations to fill in the. Kids now are getting too much information from screen, too much. They're not, their imaginations are not being exercised. The spoken word and sounds and visual load, so the imagination can work and dream and fill it all in. I'm delighted to be doing some of that again. However, I had a great time with Power Rangers. I mean,
I was watching your morph on YouTube, and I'm like, you were really into it. I loved it.
You weren't. There was a lot of people who didn't. They were they got a lot of reaction from around the world from fans who thought, why are they mucking around with this old guy? You know, Shelby back in Baby should be the next Power Ranger, and a Purple Power, and she did become the next Purple Power Ranger. Forgotten the actress's name, but I think her character's name was Shelby. Am I right about that, or was the actor's name Shelby? I get a bit confused. Anyway,
she's cool. I mean, eventually they're gonna make an action figure out of it. I mean, are you gonna buy your action figure?
There was an action figure. Hasbro, or is it Hambro? Hambro. Ryan said that Hambro are now making a larger one of me. It's not really me, of course. I did get into purple spandex. I got into purple spandex, and because I'm slim, I looked very like the Japanese stunty who played me for the action scenes. And I walked onto the set, and even the New Zealand crew, they all went, wow, because I look really good in purple. So I'm on blue today. I know. I'm a Piscean. I'm a fish person. Two fish. And for some reason, I remember doing an English play, Butley, a very good play from the 1970s. And they gave me a dark blue velvet sort of jacket, velvet jacket, and suddenly I looked fantastic. So you sort of learn these things about yourself, you know. That's another thing that director said. He not only said striptease of the soul, he said actors, it's a profession where people get to know themselves better than most people, because you're always exploring yourself and sharing aspects of yourself and learning about. And so we get to know ourselves more thoroughly, good and bad.
When you get that phone call from Power Rangers and say, we want you to be a Power Ranger, what is the reaction on your end? Like, did you know what it was? Did they tell you had to be?
No, not very well, no. I knew it was, I had some idea, but I made a point of then watching. I found it very noisy when I watched it on I don't particularly, it's not my taste in screen music, you know, but it works for the kids, you know, works for the young. And I can understand that. And of course, the stunt work is amazing. And I learned that the Jewish businessman who bought the franchise from the Japanese used Los Angeles stunties. We call them stunties. We put IE. These are yachties out there today, and there are tradies, and there's sparkies who do electricity, and chippies who do carpentry, and that's Australia and New Zealand, IES on the end of it. So stunties, but this Los Angeles stunt people, and there are Kiwis working there in stunt work, they're larger and they're not as quick. And the Japanese are very, very nimble and quick and fast. And after a couple of seasons, he went to them and he said, can you loan us a team of stunties? You know? And they were thrilled. Oh, more work, you know. And so for years now, there's been Japanese stunt people living here, or they come over, you know, because they rotate. And then some of them graduate to being second unit directors. But the great thing on my episode was that Chip really cared about my character. He had a lot of fun writing him.
Yeah.
And he came down when it was second unit. We had a good New Zealand director, Mike Smith, directed me in the acting scenes. And the big secret is that the more agile moments were done by a stunt double. It's not me running, for example.
Right.
And I did half of the scrambling over the cargo net, but half of it was my stunt double. But it was so well done that you can't tell. They chose somebody who's got my body shape and same costume, of course, and same makeup and stuff. But he's the guy that does the push-ups when we run back to the base camp. And then I do one push-up at the end and get up and tell the story of how I found the inner gem.
Yeah.
I think they were going to use him to climb the mountain, but I was able to climb the mountain. That was a bit difficult because the snow was little polystyrene flakes. And if you get a polystyrene flake in your eye, it's a problem. But that was a good scene, finding the inner gem and wondering what on earth it was. And there's a guy called Derek B. Gale, who's a Midwesterner, and he's a fan of all of these shows, and obviously grew up on computer. But he's also done a performance art degree, and he wrote a really beautiful review. It's worth looking up. Derek Gale, Gayle. Derek B. Gale. It's on 2016, I think he wrote it.
Nice.
Lovely bit of work, really quite deep, because apparently Dino Charge, the Dino Charge series of Power Rangers, they were looking more into what makes a hero, why are people heroes, and he was quite interesting the way he draws out these deeper themes that are in there,
Yeah.
So that impressed me about the team, out at the studios here where it's made, that they were committed, serious. It's a lot of fun making it, but it's a profession, and they care about it. They're craftspeople. I was told that 2 or 3 seasons before, the ownership of it changed, and the whole thing went downhill. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that was the Disney days.
Was it? Disney was involved. And then the original owners bought it back again or something, and the standard's gone up again.
Yeah, and now it's owned by Hasbro. So let's see how long.
It's owned by Hasbro. That's why there's going to be an action figure. That was funny. I told Derek, I don't know if you watched the interview, but I was in my spandex doing the morphing sequence. I can't remember. It's a ritual that you do. I need to sort of dig deep and retrieve my mind. I did some mime training with a great guy called Leonard. God, I've forgotten his second name. In Berkeley, Bay Area.
Let me see. I actually can share it with you. Hold on a second. Share
screen.
Share. Hold on a second. I gotta. Let me see. I have the morph. Hold on a second here.
The morphing sequence. Oh, good.
Yeah, I have it. Hold on a second. I think it's this one. There you go.
Ready?
Just into it. Fantastic. I love it. I thought it was great.
It was great.
Cool. I mean,
great to get that. Great to have that.
Yeah.
Derek B. Gale argues that Albert Smith didn't really need to be physically dexterous, or the stunty, when he was a Power Ranger, he needed to be dexterous. But showing him running and doing push-ups as an old man was a bit, he said, that's unnecessary. Anyway, it's an interesting essay that he wrote, and the whole thing zooms past so fast you don't necessarily see the things. So I thought there was a contradiction at the end when I give the inner gem back. The keeper takes the inner gem through an interesting aperture at the top of his staff. There's an amber sort of, and the inner gem disappears through and back, and then he walks away and disappears. But Albert says he's going to keep going as a guardian of but how can he without superpowers? But I presume he can. He can just do a lower grade of social work around the community.
Well, I mean,
the great thing is that Chip makes him grow through the episode. He starts out as a crazy old coot. I mean, It's very, very strange that this old guy was taking people on. He was either a grade A con artist or he was very deluded, because there are no big animals naturally in New Zealand. New Zealand doesn't have snakes. It doesn't have big mammals or anything. It does now, of course. But originally it was just a bird. In fact, some New Age types say that New Zealand, which is geologically recent, very recent uplift from the sea, although there's a big continent that's sunken that New Zealand is part of. But but it's really very young geologically, and they say that the Davis and people, created New Zealand as a bird sanctuary, and we're trying to get it back to being that. We're trying to kill the predators. They introduce stoats and weasels and cats, and people. That's very contentious, trying to get rid of domestic cats because people love them. But cats are killers, unfortunately, but it's even worse in Australia. They really destroy the native fauna. Flora and fauna. Yeah, it's a ghastly. And when the original Europeans arrived here, they remarked on the deafening bird song in the morning and evening. And there were the giant moa, one of the world's largest flightless birds, used to roam around. That was actually killed off by the early Maori.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool.
But anyway, the great thing was that he did score a Bigfoot because Albert trapped a monster. I thought that was a great.
That's so neat. I mean, I think that's great to share with your family, especially when that figure comes out, be like, that's me, even though, obviously your gem went off to someone else, but it still was you for that short period of time. So still get credit. After Power Rangers, what is it that you're working on now? Because, we had a hard time scheduling this because you're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of music. I'm sort of working hard at my violin, trying to get more technique. And I'm working in 2 very good amateur orchestras with professional soloists and professional conductors. And we're just going to do St. Matthew Passion, one of the great masterworks of Western civilization, Johann Sebastian Bach's St. Matthew Passion, which we're doing in Hamilton, which is an hour and a half south of Auckland. It's another big city. They're sort of slowly joining up, those 2 cities. It'll be one great conurbation one day. I'm exaggerating because there's a lot of country in between them, a lot of farms. This is a place of farms. It was initially a big farm for the United Kingdom. Now it's a big farm for China and other East Asian countries, and Australia. We do a lot of food. We do food. I think we've got about 13 to 20,000 people working on primary farming, production of food, and high quality protein for about 44 million people.
Wow.
Milk powder and meat and sheep meat, deer meat, beef meat, and fish, and lots of veggies and things. Yeah. We're slowly learning how to process it more, freeze dry it, things like that. And we also send wood overseas too.
Wow.
Particularly. Why question?
Sorry.
There's another guy, another theatrical I used to work with here. He said, we've got to make, the kiwi, our national bird, is flightless. It's a very small moa. It's like the size of a large hen. And they're under threat, of course. We're trying to rescue them and bring them back. But he used to say, we've got to make the kiwi fly. Let's get out of the mud. All this farming and materialism in New Zealand, people stuck in the mud. And Elric, who I talked about earlier, used to say, cultures, when they get excess wealth, good cultures or mature cultures spend it on finding out who they are. They spend it on arts. So you saw this with the British Empire. As the empire faded, people got interested in who they were. They used the remaining wealth that was left, to do theatre and music and composition and write things, novels, and New Zealand, you buy a second batch and a third car or something or other. It's, you know, materials. That's still a thing. We're changing it slowly but surely. We're getting more and more. We being the dreamers and the slowly getting more respect. You got to do good quality work, and people begin to appreciate it if you just keep at it.
Absolutely. Is New Zealand part of the British Commonwealth?
Yes, very much so. Yes, we're one of the 4 dominions: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. Africa stopped being a dominion quite a few years ago. They were chucked out for apartheid when they had the apartheid policy. Long gone now, of course. Swept away by Nelson Mandela. And but I don't know if they're back in the Commonwealth or not. But there is not a strong British tradition there, but also an Afrikaans tradition. And I only recently learned that Afrikaans people are actually Belgian Dutch. People from the Dutch part of Belgium. Interesting. There's the Walloons, who are the French people, and there are the Dutch Belgians who became the Dutch Reformed Church, and the Afrikaans of South Africa are by and large the Dutch Belgian. Interesting.
So how does it make you feel to still be part of the British Commonwealth? Is it beneficiary to that, to even
Well, you're asking me at a very interesting time, because we've just had Oprah.
I mean, this is why
becoming the Queen of America, Oprah.
I mean, come on.
And it was this long 2-hour thing with Meghan and Harry.
They live down the road from me. I have to ask.
there you go. Oh, well, that's all. There's a lot of people extremely interested in that here. This little country is still one of the last bastions of Commonwealth and empire and monarchy. There are a lot of monarchists here, but we also have a lot of Republicans as well who want to have our own elected president, you know, or governor. We elect our own governor general. We have a New Zealand governor general. It's a woman at the moment. Many of our leading people are again. It's like Helen Clark's time at the early 80s, early 2000s. The Helen Clark government. We're back. We've got a woman prime minister, a woman chief justice, a woman. What was the one I just nearly said? I've lost the thread. Anyway, a lot of women running things.
That's fantastic. That's progressive. I love it.
yeah. Well, we're quite comfortable with it. We seem to do well. There's a proportion of the population that quietly seethe. A lot of the new immigrants too, people coming from South Asia or East Asia, are not comfortable with it. They come from countries that are still very patriarchal. Confucian, maybe, or they've never had. Well, India's a bit different, because India's had Indira Gandhi and Bangladesh has women prime ministers. In fact, 2 of them alternate, and daggers drawn actually. And I don't. But Pakistan's masculine leaders. That's the role of a man. A strong gender role division, and they can't quite understand how we do things or why we do things our way. New Zealand is actually a matriarchy more than a patriarchy. It has been really the Maori. Wahine and Tāne. Wahine women, Tāne men. And the Wahine. And of course, the Maori culture has been under stress because it's post-colonial. They suffered a lot of depredations from us, from the settler.
Right.
There were originally, at the time of the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840, there were about, we never know for sure, but there were approximately 2,000 Maori, or 2,500 maybe. There was no, we don't know. And there were only about 800,000 Pākehā. And over the next 40 years, 400,000 more Pākehā. That Pākehā means other, different. And there were mainly white settler people from the United Kingdom. But then there were also quite a few Germans we were mentioning today. Quite a few Germans came in the 19th century, and they did the brewing industry, the beer, and then there were people from. We've had people from Poland and lots of it. It's become very, very. This is one of the most multicultural cities now. That's very interesting. It's very interesting teaching in a language school, teaching these New Zealanders, trying to help them with their English. And I was doing a lot of acting in the language school, quite frankly. Some of them really liked that. They said, you act out the words. We can see, without, because I was doing it without thinking a new word, and without thinking I'd sort of act it out. And I was doing performances. It's not particularly good. I was winging it sometimes, and a lot of people like structure. They like system and structure, and it's a bit loose on that side of things.
Yeah, but that's a really cool teaching tool, because then they can actually visualize it, so that they know what it is, so that I think that retains more.
And as you can probably tell, I talk a lot. I'm a talker. My mother was an incredible talker, an amazing conversationalist, and I sort of grow up listening to all of this, and I overtalk sometimes. I hope I'm not doing that too much now. Going all over the place. No, rambling around. Sometimes it all joins together. It's like sort of a chaos theory, fractals, and then out pattern emerges after a while.
Oh no, it's fantastic. I love listening to people and their stories. I think everyone has a story. It's that's one of the reasons why I love doing the show, because we learn a lot from each other. I think everyone has.
Oh, you do shows too. Oh, you mean this kind of show?
This YouTube show. I was in ballet for like 12 years as a kid, so I grew up on the stage. However, that's after I graduated high school, I couldn't even pursue it any further. I really wanted to, but my dad wasn't about to pay for it. He's like, no. I had told him, I said, I just need to go to LA and be like, Britney Spears' backup dancer. I just wanted to dance. There's something about being on that stage that it's like heroin. It's like crack. It's like you just have to be on it, and you crave it.
The irony is we have dance crews in South Auckland, Polynesian, who have done extremely well, and they back, I don't know if they back Britney, but they back J-Lo, and they back all of the top. They use, I've forgotten the choreographer's name. She's done extremely well. She's still very young too, but and of course there are South Auckland rappers too. Polynesian rap is done. There's a film now about there's the Dawn Raid Studios. Dawn Raids. I won't get started on Dawn Raids. That happened in the 1970s. They were overstayers from the Pacific Islands. The Pacific Islanders were brought over to work in the factories. And then New Zealand went into recession and even economic depression, and the factories closed, and it all went to China. And suddenly we tried to get rid. There were quite a few family members who were coming over, and they didn't quite do the visa applications, and they were sort of thrown away and passed around. And the police would knock on the door at 5 a.m., barge in and find overstayers and cart them away. It was really traumatic, and that hasn't been forgotten. But now that community is, because they have big families and live close together, they're really under threat from COVID. And that's where the diabetes is, and the obesity, and lots of social health issues. But amazing people go off Pakeha, leave here and go and retire off to Queensland and Australia, and then they kind of miss the warmth of Auckland. And the warmth is the Polynesians, the valiant, Tongans, the very loud and proud Tongans and Samoans. There used to be fights between them. God, it's very interesting.
Oh, cool. So you're still very active in acting, and is there a goal out there after this is all over? Of course, is there a goal you'd want to hit, or a specific role that you would love to do that you haven't done yet?
Well, I'm one of those aging old theatricals who'd love to do more Shakespeare, and we had a Shakespeare pop-up company here, and I did audition for it. Didn't get in. I've got to get a new knee. I'm seeing a specialist at the end of this month, the surgeon, Mr. Jacob Munro, who will give me a new knee of titanium, and away I'll go again. I rode a motorcycle into an oncoming vehicle in about 1972 and nearly killed myself, but I broke the lower leg, right leg, four places, and a bit of bone came through. It was a compound fracture. And then it was set by an intern, a young doctor of learning in the hospital, and he got the pronation wrong. They had to retwist it and break it after a week, and that's when it hurt. It didn't hurt at all up till then. Then it hurt like hell for one day. I stuck it out for half an hour when I came out from under the anesthetic. Hit the button, the nurse came, and they pumped me full of something called Omnipom. and medical people will know, that's a very strong anesthetic.
Holy shit.
Not anesthetic, what do I mean?
Anesthesia.
What do you say? Yeah. Anyway, it made me completely numb, and I floated up to the top of a sunny Sunday afternoon in Christchurch and spent the day gaga. It felt as though I'd floated up.
Oh my
and
God.
The next day it was comfortable enough for me not to bother with any of that. So that was my experience with Omnipom, probably the most powerful drug I've ever had anything to do with. And yeah.
Okay.
But then it started hurting again about 5 to 7 years ago, and it's hurting more and more because the bone is now grating on each other. Very painful. And arthritic degeneration of the knee, because the leg is actually almost 1.5 centimeters shorter than it was naturally. And the funny thing is, I trumped around. One of the things I did between the ages of 35 and 45 on 1 meter wooden stilts. And those got sorbothane inserts into the shoes so that there was some kind of shock. It was still not much shock absorption on stilts as you stride around. They're amazing things. It's a different rhythm. And as a short person, it was amazing to suddenly be a giant.
You killed your knee over your craft. That is amazing. It's probably all the Power Ranger stuff you did. That's probably what activated it to hurt again.
No, it wasn't. No, it's just walking, and biking's okay. I can bike everywhere, but walking, I go into pain quite quickly.
Wow.
And we did once the musical. It's based on a lovely little Irish movie called Once, and they made a musical. It went big in New York and London, and then it's been done all over the world now. It's a beautiful little show. And I did that 2 years ago, and I had trouble. Well, the warm-ups, they knew that they said, don't do this and don't do that. Arthur, don't do it. And I was disconcerted how I couldn't stand double weighted properly on stage. And here I am going to be doing some more stage acting with Hansel and Gretel. And also playing the violin. You need to be double weighted, and you play the instrument from the floor when you're playing well. You're very strongly earthed and grounded, and suddenly I'm all out of balance, and I'm starting to get referred pain in the other knee and the right hip, and all, So I'm looking forward to being remade in that sense.
Wow.
And that's why I had to have an action double for the moments when Albert did vigorous things.
Yeah.
I tried to show them that I could do some fencing, but in doing that, I realized, whoopsie daisy. So anyway, somebody got a job as my stunt double. Yeah.
Oh man. So what's your favorite work from Shakespeare? What would you love to be? What would you like to do?
I've learned lots of monologues. I'm Enobarbus. I'm probably a bit old, but I am I'm not much younger than my age, and of course you can act young as well. So Enobarbus from Antony and Cleopatra, that beautiful speech about the barge she sat in the King Claudius from Hamlet. All my offences rank. It hath the primal eldest curse upon it, and brother's murder. He sort of mutters away, praying, and he can't get peace. Shakespeare's extremely good at giving every character's point of view.
Oh, yeah.
This is why one shouldn't bother about Shylock, because Shylock's perfectly capable of justifying himself. Do I not bleed? Am I not? He completely justifies himself as a human being. No need to. I was in a production years ago of The Merchant of Venice that was inverted. All of the main characters, we were turned into Christian fascists.
Oh, that's
the director was worried that after the Holocaust you can't have a Jewish villain in a play who's dumped on by the rest of the characters. But Shakespeare's taken care of all that. It's stupid to try, because it was a diminished the play. And I was one of what's called the salads, Salieri, Solanio, and somebody else. There's a third one, who actually sort of paint the pictures and fill it in a very romantic, your Argus. I can't remember the lines, but I made the poetry work really well one day in the rehearsal studio, and fellow actors went, "Wow, yeah, that's how it should be." And then the next day, the director cut all my poetic lines out.
Wow.
That was hard. That was tough.
Oh.
Tony is now gone. He's gone from us, but
Yeah.
He loved sort of cerebral. Sorry?
Friends, Roman countrymen, lend me your ears. That's
I got to do that. I played the old actor. Bertolt Brecht wrote a play called, God, I don't know what it's called, but it's all set in the vegetable markets of Chicago, but it's really Hitler. It's about the rise of Hitler. Wow. Arturo Ui, that's the name of it, Arturo Ui. And there's an old actor who coaches Ui in how to deliver rhetoric. And he uses friends, Romans, countrymen. My father used to send it up. Friends, Romans, countrymen, give me 3 beers.
Yeah. I mean,
he also used to say, omelette, omelette, I am thy father's ghostlet, instead of Hamlet, Hamlet, I am thy father's ghost. Omelette, omelette, I am thy father's ghostlet. So Dad, because Dad grew up with British radio humor in the 1930s and during the Second World War, there was all this verbal humor, and people of his generation were full of jokes and tricks and verbal rather than visual. Our culture's gone all over the top visual, which also has its. I noticed that all the kids do beautiful color harmonized paintings and drawings now from a young age, because they're seeing designer color on screen and they just pick up that this goes well with that. And mind you, whether you get originality, hopefully there are people who bust out and do something. Well, they do. They shouldn't worry about that. There's plenty of bang on amazing creativity. This country's bursting with it. It's just a matter of we don't have big enough audiences, But now the rest of the world is picking up that we're sort of a skunk works. You know about the skunk works? Skunk works, famous prefab building down the back of Lockheed Martin aerospace and aircraft industry in California.
Right.
Martin. And the skunk works where there's brilliant, very advanced, the F-16 and the spy plane, the black spy plane, years and years ahead of their time. The skunk works dreamt those all up down the back of the premises. And New Zealand is a little bit like that. The things that back in the day, we were the first sort of social welfare state. We pioneered a lot of social welfare stuff. First country to give women the vote. And advanced social welfare programs. We've dropped off the pace on all of that now. We've slipped down. But we were a sort of a laboratory. I think corporations still use us like we went overboard on ATMs, for example, here. Even now there are ATMs everywhere, much more than in other countries. And things like that get tried out here. A nice little population of 4 million where you can try things out. But we can do that in other ways. We're starting to do that with high tech. We've now got a competitor for Elon Musk. Rocket Lab. We've got Rocket Lab, which has a very they build rocket engines using I forgot what it's called. When a computer layers of material. What's it called? Printing.
Like 3D printing.
Sorry?
3D printing.
3D printing.
Yeah.
Well, they build the engines using 3D printing, but it's also got interesting electricals that get the fuel into the combustion chamber very cheaply, very effectively, but very cheaply.
Yeah.
So these Rocket Lab, but then Elon Musk has managed to do the same thing in other ways. He's a remarkable guy, a total freak. He's a sort of the Howard Hughes of our age.
Yeah, I'm an Elon fan.
Sure. He's married to some amazing woman musician. She's extraordinary. Sort of all tattooed and very avant-garde, and they're an amazing people.
He's definitely an innovator. I really look up to what he's doing in business and his overall thinking and things. I think he's fantastic.
He's a little bit. There's a slightly dangerous side to him as well. What I'm very worried about is that he's putting up strings. He's not the only one. Strings of satellites beaming 5G microwave radiation down onto the planet, and I'm very concerned. There's a panel of people community of people in Canada and Toronto. I've forgotten the guy who runs it all, or is the head officer of the group. It's called Canadians for Safe Technology. C4 numeral 4 ST. They are very worried about microwave radiation, 1 to 4G and then 5G and beyond, particularly 5G because it uses a new microwave, millimeter wave, as well as the carrier wave, the larger wave. But anyway, it's anybody who's interested, go and look at C4ST. Very good. Frank is the name. I've forgotten his second name. He was the head of Microsoft in Canada, and before that he worked for IBM. He knows his technology. And the safe technology is fiber optic cable. And they're just saying, take the cabling out to your fingertips and toes and switch off your Wi-Fi every night. Switch it all off. Give yourself the hours of sleep. Give yourself a break from microwave radiation because it's carcinogenic. According to there's 250 scientific papers that they quote, but there's 2 recent animal studies that's the most worrying thing with long-term exposure. All they're asking for is more research. But we're conducting this gigantic experiment, and we may not know the outcome for 30 years. Yeah, because they say there's 1 million people in Canada suffering microwave radiation illness, and because there's 1 trillion times more microwave radiation. It used to be just medical people, X-ray technicians, and radar operators who were exposed to this stuff. But in the last 50 or 60 years, we've increased it, and the microwave from the sun goes round our planet because of the iron core and the magnetic shield that protects us. But now we are busy. We're busy microwaving ourselves in some sense.
One of the theories when COVID first happened last year was 5G. That this was the objective, was to keep us all inside the house while they put all the 5G networks up. And
no, I think that's a conspiracy theory. I don't think those guys are driven. The techno tycoons are driven by fascination with the future and wealth, money. There's a hell of a lot of money coming from 5G. Is going to explode the use of all this stuff, and I think there's the Toronto people say there's a terrible downside on the health side of things. There are people who are sensitive to all this. They're like broadleaf trees in terms of ecology. You know, the broadleaf trees. I've just read the most amazing novel called Overstory. It's an American novel. The novelist had a religious experience with a sequoia, with a redwood tree. And the redwood tree features in the novel. It's an astounding novel. It's a whole group of people from very different ways of life he writes about in the early part of the novel. You get to know them, and then they all get concerned about saving trees, you know. And I didn't realize that the USA used to have huge chestnut forests, gigantic. There were 4 huge forests, all now largely gone. And one of the things in the novel that they try and do is to save the redwoods, save the sequoias, because even now some of them on private land are being milled. The corporations are in there. I mean, in Northern California, I think they've saved whole groves as national. But the immense destruction has been caused and brought about. We're trying to plant 1 billion trees here, including a lot of natives. We've realized that we have these big Pinus radiata plantations, and Pinus radiata comes from California. But here they grow in 30-year cycles. They grow very big and very fast, softwood, and we're exporting whole logs to China. You know, when the Russians don't export their forests to China, we step in and they come here. But it's extractive, although it's plantations, so you could say, oh well, but anyway, getting into that's New Zealand, all these issues. We're very concerned about, or some of us are very concerned about global warming, and even tiny as we are, we need to be working hard. We have to do things like make cattle fart less, or belch less, actually, not farting, it's belching. They belch methane out. Cows in particular have this wonderful multi-chambered digestive system and creates methane. So there's a lot of research going on into various oils or feeds that mean less methane coming out of the cows, because that's at 40% of our emissions are agricultural in this country. But we also need to change our car fleet. We'll be one of the slowest countries to change over to electrical, or even though we have sustainable electricity. So you can see I'm an actor and a musician, but I go all over the place. And fascinated by politics, fascinated by yacht races.
Oh, yeah. No, I love it. I love hearing what's happening over there.
We're terrible sports mad country. We're a bit like Spartans. We take it far too seriously, and our national rugby football team is the All Blacks. Have you heard of the All Blacks?
I've not.
They're fearsome gladiators. They don't armor up like your gridiron players. They just go out. There's a concern there, as with the gridiron players, about concussion.
Yeah.
Contact sports, and the middle-aged players are getting early Alzheimer's and dementia, and now the lawyers are in on it, and they're doing group what do you call it, class action.
Class action lawsuit.
Yeah, against the International Rugby Organization. And there was a very good movie from America about the gridiron one. It's a little bit like the wonderful story of that. Who's the great actor? Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Erin
Brockovich. Yeah.
Brockovich. Marvelous film. It's got a great English actor in it. Albert Finney plays her boss in the law firm, and I grew up with Albert Finney as an example. It was a wonderful film of him playing Tom Jones when he was a young man. The Henry Fielding novel, Tom. That would still be a wonderful movie to see. Albert Finney's Tom Jones. Yeah.
Well, with all of these studios opening in New Zealand, the whole Amazon and Netflix, are you going to try and get in on any of those projects over there? Because, it's booming.
Yeah, I'm up for them, definitely. We've had 2 days on we being the three old men. There's three old codgers, and their names are Antonio, Carlos, and Jobim, which is a joke, because that great bossa nova jazz man died about 18 months ago. And he was associated with João Gilberto. Yes, and Astrid, João Gilberto's wife Astrid, is the singer on The Girl from Ipanema, which is a lovely story, because they were in New York about to, lay down some tracks in a studio, and they said, "Oh, Astrid, would you get up and run through it for us, and we'll bring the singer in later." She got up and did one take, and became a superstar.
Dang.
That's the version you hear, the original version. She also sings Quiet Nights and Quiet Rooms, and something that looks out on Corcovado. Oh, how lovely. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Bossa Nova. Yeah. So we were Antonio, Carlos, and Jobim, bounty hunters in space. They retired, because your great Chinese American actor plays Spike. Now, what the hell's his name? Oh, for God's sake! He wrenched his knee. Did you hear about this? We were shooting away. I didn't realize for a month. 2 days after I was on the show, which was at the end of 2019. We got our little scene, one line each, because in the original anime, we crop up all the way through, a bit like a Greek chorus, and our characters are retired. We're broken down old has-beens, but we know to hit the deck at the right time to win the firefights and the terrible ultraviolence, and we survive, and we keep cropping up. So we cropped up a year later, because he wrenched his knee and had to be jetted back for surgery in Los Angeles. Name, he was big on the modern Star Wars movies.
Modern
Star Wars. He does a lot of work. He's now about 42 years old. Nice guy, very dapper and trim. He plays Spike, the main bounty hunter character, and this guy called Mustafa, a lovely Afro-American or Muslim Afro-American. he's the giant sidekick. I've forgotten the sidekick's name. And then there's some great kick-ass roles for women. But they're making 6 episodes, and I think they must be close to finishing shooting those. And we got 2 days out of it, 2 different episodes. But we were hoping. I'm sort of keeping a bit fuzzy and long. The mullet is coming back. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really trying to grow a mullet. I'm just trying to keep ready in case I play Carlos. Carlos comes back, I can quickly grow my beard long because I.
Oh yeah.
And they put me. The makeup lady worked on a film about Einstein, and the great Australian actor Geoffrey Rush wore this wonderful Einstein wig. You know what Einstein looked like with his hair. Yeah. And I got to wear the Einstein wig. So, wearing that wig and with a beard, I think I could play Beethoven.
Oh, you could.
I my beard up. I'm actually very narrow-jawed and thin-lipped, but with a beard and with the Einstein wig on.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Da 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 da. Yeah. I want dots. Play dots.
I can't wait to see.
I'd like to play Beethoven. Yeah,
I can't wait to see what else you do, Arthur. That you're just such a talented man. I can't wait.
I've got into a lot of gardening lately, landscape gardening. This little cottage that I bought, doing up, it's got a little bit of garden with it. So yeah.
Awesome. Are you on social media or anything? Do you talk to fans on?
No. Well, I talked to Ryan, got me going on that one, and somebody said, "What about coming over? There's a couple of conventions for Power Rangers, one in Florida and one." I said, "Oh yeah, sure." I'm not sure whether they'd pay the airfare, but I could actually afford to get myself over there. It'd be good to. I mean, I did come over and spend 6 months in the Bay Area in 1983. Leonard Pitt. That's his name, Leonard Pitt. Great guy. Trained in Paris with Etienne de Creux, one of the great French mime teachers and artists, and then he went to Bali and learned the complete opposite. So the French mime is very held, very balletic, which you would know about. And the Balinese is very down insects, down with very splayed legs, very ground. And when the Balinese have kind of culturally colonized the Bay Area. They send troops over every couple of years. Yeah. And lesser parts, Leonard would join in. He'd join them because he spent a year there and made good friends and learned how to learned how to wear the mask. He's incredible at wearing masks. And his decree mime training, you can put on a paper bag and make it come vividly to life. It's fantastic.
That's a true gift of an actor that can make that happen.
He won a Bay Area award for being for a clown when he was doing his clown show. Brilliant clown. He showed a flash of that when he came to Auckland. But he'd be largely retired now. I think he's doing quite a bit of writing now. He stopped moving. He got some sort of physical ailment because he was overusing his body in a way. And he used to work with a group of, I've forgotten their names, but the avant-garde work, it was amazing. I saw one of the shows that they did. People came from New York while I was there, and they said, "God, there's nothing in New York like this West Coast avant-garde play." Yeah. One of the earlier shows, they had the line, "Let us play." And they were doing all the amazing rap poetry and stuff. Mashing up genres within the show, and amazing visual effects created with drums and tubes and neon lighting and feedback, looped sound, guitar playing and then playing with itself, thicker and thicker and denser, building up very, very dense, powerful, and then cutting away to nothing again and starting again. Brilliant work, just dazzling.
Well, definitely you should come to Power Morphicon. That's in Los Angeles. That'll be in August of 2022, and then
one in Florida. Ryan mentioned one in Florida.
Ranger Stop is in Florida.
Place for me to go. Florida, that's like another planet to me.
I mean, Florida feels like very tropical. I just got back from there. I was there last week. It's very tropical feeling. So it's kind of
very Latino, isn't it? Latino.
Yeah, there's a lot of Latino. Well, the further down in Miami,
California is being recolonized by the Latinos, isn't it? The Spanish are back.
I mean, we're here.
Hasn't Los Angeles got a Latino mayor?
Yes, we do. I can't remember his name right. Garcetti is the LA mayor.
Actually, yeah. Oh, no, Andrew Cuomo's Italian American, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in New York.
He's in strife with the ladies now. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's in trouble right now.
Oh, the neat thing. Andrew. But I thought he was, a year ago, he was going great on the COVID, standing up to Trump and trying hard to get things. He's a bit of a COVID hero.
Just like Rudy Giuliani, we thought he was.
Oh, Rudy, he's gone feral. He was brilliant during the 9/11, and now he's become bizarre. It's all summed up by the mascara running down the face. We get all this stuff here.
Trial by combat is his favorite thing.
Trial by combat.
Yeah, that was his.
I don't know. Ian Campbell it's the Goebbels technique of the big lie. And make it a really big lie, so it's got to be true because it's so big nobody can believe it, and just start the lie and then keep dripping it, asserting it until it becomes reality. And it's
crazy.
Just crazy.
The times we live in.
Yeah. I think it's only going to get more pressured, actually. I think this is the human race sort of overpopulating the planet and stressing everything out, including ourselves. Although, if we organized it properly, we could. But this business of extracting the oil and the coal and then going from 2 million right up to nearly 9 million in 200 years, 9 billion, I mean, it's just
it's crazy. Yeah. Well, Arthur, I'm going to end this right here. It was so much fun listening to you talk about your experiences and your career. I appreciate your time. It was so much
to talk more about my career and some of the roles, some of the bizarre. In New Zealand, you end up doing. I talked about stilt walking, and clowning, still anything to keep going, to try and keep going. And the 8 subsidized live theatre companies, we've only got 3 now. It's devastated. I won't use the term decimate because I'm an old pedantic fogey who believes decimate is 1 in 10. And it wasn't used very much by the legionnaires of Rome because if you think it was terribly bad for morale. If you get soldiers to kill their colleagues, 1 in 10, when they didn't perform on the battlefield, that was the original idea. Every 10th man, step forward, bang, get killed by your mates. Well, it was terrible. They didn't use it very often. That's decimate for me still. Now decimate means destroy. I don't know why we don't use the word destroy. It was destroyed, or it was another D word as well. Destroyed. Demolished. That's it. That was demolished or destroyed. Why do we keep saying decimate? Anyway, decimate now is language. That's the glory of English. It's so flexible and it changes and adapts.
Oh my goodness.
With 100 English words, you can do an awful lot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martha. I've really enjoyed your company. You've stimulated me enormously. Yeah.
Well, I hope
I have a wonderful landlady in she runs, even now, she runs the ESOL department, the English in Berkeley, UCLA Berkeley. And I didn't think to go and see her place of work while I was there. I lived with her for 6 months in her house. And God damn it, I could have got a head start on the whole English teaching thing.
Yeah.
But you remind me of her. Yeah.
Aww.
It's a kind of generosity of spirit that both of you have. Fantastic.
Aww. Well, thank you so much for your time, Arthur. I greatly appreciate it. You stay safe in New Zealand.
Can I ask who else is watching this?
Oh, so right now we're pre-recording, but we do have this. Yeah. So this will go out on.
Will you edit it down, or what will you? How will you?
Oh yeah, I'll edit it down. So it goes on YouTube, and lots of Power Ranger fans watch. We have lots of other entrepreneurs. And we have a very nice call.
He is a crazy old coot.
Not even. Absolutely not. No. No one would ever say that. Well, thank you so much, Arthur. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Arthur, any last words?
Well, thank you very much, Martha. I'm open to do this anytime. I enjoy it enormously. It is a delight to realize that there are people interested, because initially I thought, for a lot of people, it was frustrating that an old guy was playing the role when they just wanted to go to Shelby. But no, it seems to have turned around. Maybe Chip created a classic episode.
You did a fantastic job. It's so cool to see. Again, anyone can be a Power Ranger from.
Well, I'm deeply indebted to Eric B. Gale, because he wrote a beautiful review and was very kind to me in that review. And but it's, as I say, he was exploring. It starts off quite academically, but then it frees up and becomes very interesting and very, yeah.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.